Thank you for joining the Sharpest College Football Podcast's Notre Dame preview. If this is your first time, thank you very much. We appreciate you joining us. And if you're returning, as you know by now, if you're returning, you are by definition a genius. I am BuckMetrics. I am joined as always by Robert Martin, and we have a very special guest, who we will introduce here. His name is, on Twitter, he goes by Dilly97. He is a host of the Four Horsemen podcast, to which we trace the origins of this podcast, and we can get to that in a second. He is also, this is redundant, a kind Canadian. We'll just go with Dylan. Dylan, it's great to see you. It's been a few months, but always good to catch up with you and talk football.
It's great to see you, Buck and Robert. I agree. It's been a long off season, especially for Notre Dame fans, so we're looking forward to getting this one going.
Robert, you have the upper hand now. Just the American is outnumbered by the Canadians. Are you gonna like preemptively invade now? Is that how it works?
I was thinking about that. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, we got them at number 2-1 now. This is a rare opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
To that White House.
It was you. Okay, got to move on. If you want this preview in PDF form or any of our conference previews, they are available. Just leave your address in the YouTube comments, and I will grant you access to the Google Drive. Or you can hit me up on Twitter, just at BuckMetrics. If this is your first time, believe me, you want to take a screen grab of this and save it and refer to it throughout the rest of this podcast, as these are the metrics that we speak to. It's basically the language that I speak until Robert and the guest translate normal people English. And Robert, this is the first time the pod has gone to Notre Dame. I asked AI to take us there, and it did its usual horrible job. I don't know this building, Dylan, but is there like a practice field in front of some cathedral here? It looks like there's 5-yard marking lines here. Where is this supposed to be?
That's supposed to be the famous Golden Dome, which is the admissions building, but there isn't a football field or a practice field in front of it. So I appreciate AI's effort there. The building's also a little wide. Overall, not too bad. It got the gist of it.
Doesn't Robert look like an offensive line recruit on his visit there?
He does.
Alabama, yes.
You almost look father and son in this picture.
Yes.
A little.
I like how Dad's taking his son on the recruiting visit and Dad has the headphones on. I'm not sure how that works. All right. We are going to talk about the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. This is my gift to Dylan, since he basically is responsible for this pod. You can send your hate me email to him if you don't like the pod. We hadn't done a preview of Notre Dame before, and this is going to sound like just a giant love letter to Marcus Freeman and Dylan here. It's not that. It's just as I was crunching the numbers, I'll just say I was very impressed about the outlook for this team this year. It's about as positive as you can get coming into the season, like for any team since we've been doing the pod, since before the pod. In the case, just my crunching the numbers here. So let's talk about Marcus Freeman. He was the defensive coordinator here at Notre Dame in 21. In his first year, he improved the defensive rating by 3.4 points, which is significant. Just one season there, as everybody's favorite Irish coach, Brian Kelly, predicted, he became the next head coach at Notre Dame. You remember that when he just said, hey, this guy's the next head coach? He hadn't even, I think that was before he had even coached a game there, right, as a defensive coordinator. Is that right, Dylan? When Brian Kelly said Marcus Freeman's going to be the next head coach at Notre Dame. Do you remember
that's a good question. I'm not sure how that lined up. I could see that being the case because Brian Kelly loves to blow smoke up people's butts, and he had just won the services of a really handsome, talented young defensive coordinator who LSU had wanted, ironically. That's who Notre Dame beat out for him. So I could see that happening, but I don't know for sure if that was said before he even coached a game.
All right, so we're going to get sassy with, wow, look at my hot new boyfriend here. Just going to crap on the old guy already. That took, 2 minutes into the pod? Okay. Yeah, I think it did, though. I remember that made some headlines here. People like, Brian Kelly's leaving.
It sounds familiar, yeah. I think I remember him introducing this is the next head coach. I'm not sure if he said of Notre Dame or the next head coach, but yeah, it was. I remember him being really fond of Marcus Freeman, and then he took over when he left. So. Yeah.
Actually, he coached his first game as a head coach at the end of that 21 season in a crazy bowl. I don't even remember if they won or lost, but
they did lose that bowl game.
They did. Okay.
It was one of the New Year's 6 bowl games. I think it was the Fiesta Bowl, and it was for those of you who hate Notre Dame would remember, we hadn't won a New Year's 6 bowl game since 1994, and he had a chance in his first game to do so, and they get out to a 4-touchdown lead, and the meltdown happened in the second half. We don't blame Marcus for that because he had a lot going on, including trying to keep together a recruiting class, which is now ironically the bedrock of what could be a championship team this year if all things go well. So he was a little more preoccupied at the time, but It was definitely a rocky start to his career, to say the least.
Yeah, and if you're a little new to the sport, Oklahoma State, in fact, was good enough to make a New Year's Bowl at one point. They actually did have a defense at one point, too. I know that's hard to imagine now. I remember that specifically because I was on the under in that, and I was very confident. And my gosh, was I wrong on that one. Holy cow. So his first year, let me grab my laser pointer here. Oops, sorry. Come on. His first year as head coach, he goes 9-4. Didn't exactly set the world on fire, although I don't think anybody was alienated by his first season. I think there was going to be a good amount of runway, especially since don't want to make it. There can be a whole separate plot about why Brian Kelly was not very popular at Notre Dame. I seem to be his last fan on the face of the earth here. 10-3 next year, and then 14-2 last year. So definite improvement. Definite the apex of his coaching career so far is basically post that Northern Illinois game. Boy, he hopefully, for Notre Dame fans, hopefully he's got this out of his system. 3 really just dumb losses here. To Marshall, who I think went on to lose to Bowling Green the next week. A really bad Stanford team. And Northern Illinois team that's not one of their better teams. And that game just broke my model as far as Northern Illinois was concerned. I actually had my buddy Q-Dog actually reached out to me in early November. He's like, stop with Northern Illinois, dude. It's just... Northern Illinois beating Notre Dame made like bend as far as my numbers went. And my model had Northern Illinois just way too high. I'm thinking that's probably behind him by now. Those were some pretty rough moments. I don't want to out you too much, Dylan, but I remember you and I had a conversation after that Northern Illinois game.
Yep.
You're going to keep it zipped up and just, that's it? Okay.
Well, it makes me better as an analyst, at least, because after that Northern Illinois game, I always believed in Marcus Freeman, but I was starting to question because we were in year 3 at this point, and as you were pointing out, some pretty ugly losses in his tenure. And come off the heels of such a huge win at Texas A&M in Kyle Field, supposedly the toughest environment to play in, that was a big concern because it was like this roster, there isn't an excuse not to be a playoff team this year. And to their credit, whatever happened afterwards changed the program. I will argue until I die that Northern Illinois loss was necessary. And I hate to have gone through it, but it forced them to, I think, realize how important every game is and how you prepare for every game, and it really strengthened the culture at Notre Dame because something people who observed Notre Dame's playoff run last year would have noticed is how strong Notre Dame's culture is. No matter how many injuries they had suffered in that postseason, just some other guy showed up to play and was doing a job. And locking it in, as the kids say, that's what he had to do. He had to lock in. He had to win every game after that, and he had to get his team locked in. I remember some Notre Dame seasons where you lose early and things start to fall apart. I remember that 2016 season in particular when they ended up going 4-8. He didn't let that happen. I was very silly to even question him. I don't think it was totally unreasonable at the time, but in hindsight, there was no need to question him because I think he's put all those questions to bed. The biggest thing with him is he wins big games. And Brian Kelly, now I don't mean to immediately shoot at him. Brian Kelly's strength is he beat the teams he should beat, especially when he was later on in his tenure at Notre Dame. But he always struggled to win that big game. I can count on one hand how many big games he won. Right? There's the Oklahoma 2012 game. There was a USC game in there. It was either 15 or 17. We were both ranked. We beat a decent Michigan team once, and we beat Clemson towards the end of his tenure in overtime. That's 4. I didn't even get to 5. Marcus Freeman has 5 already, if not more, including 2 major bowl wins against teams that typically we wouldn't have beaten in the past, although Penn State's a little bit like Notre Dame in that sense. That's the big thing I love with Marcus Freeman, and I think that because he has those wins, he's bought himself a lot of leeway. But to your point, and I'm sure you're going to get to it, those losses can't happen anymore. You cannot be losing to Northern Illinois, Purdue, whoever else is substitute as your weak cupcake game. That can't happen anymore.
Yeah, I'll put it this way. Who doesn't lose games like that? Basically, Nick Saban, Brian Kelly. You guys aren't interested in getting Brian Kelly back. Nick Saban's not going to coach there. There's no perfect coach. I tend to be forgiving when somebody's a made guy, and he's just about a made guy, and we'll get to that in the next slide. Now, here's the stupid thing about college football that drives me nuts is he has one more, and it's, you can't trust him. You never know. Yeah, I don't know. Robert, were you... I honestly don't remember your reaction to this. Were you starting to say maybe it's time for Notre Dame to look elsewhere after that Northern Illinois game?
That one was very weird, and I think you can. It's so at the end of the season, right? That was week, I think 2 or 3, depending. I'm not sure exactly which week it was, but it was early season last year. And at the time, it wasn't completely clear exactly what Notre Dame was going to be that year. There was an argument that maybe Notre Dame was going to. We didn't know how good Texas A&M was going to be. They beat Texas A&M week 1, and we didn't know at that point. And maybe Northern Illinois could have been a good team that year. But at the end of the year, it is like abundantly clear they should not have lost it. There's no way. You play that game again.
Yeah.
7 days after the championship game, they crushed them, or even before. Like there's no doubt that Notre Dame was the far better team that game, and at home too. And it was just a weird game, losing it 16-14. Not the most typical of football scores. So just all around, just a very weird week. But again, like last year, beat Texas A&M. Texas A&M was basically I think they were just a win against Texas away from the SEC championship game. They beat Louisville, a team that was actually pretty good last year as well. They beat Georgia Tech, a team that almost took down Georgia in the last week of the season. They actually took down Georgia a couple weeks later in the I think it was the Sugar Bowl. Yes, the Sugar Bowl. Yep. I can never. It doesn't matter. It's also just like those bowl games don't matter anymore. I'm just like, if they played each other in a bowl game, and then they took on USC, which wasn't. They actually came back from behind that game as well. But no, and as Dylan was saying, and I bet on. I had Indiana versus Notre Dame in the round 1, and then I had Notre Dame versus Georgia, and then I had Notre Dame versus Penn State. And when I bet those, my concern was that, like, hey, you know what? We've seen a Notre Dame team like this before, back to the Brian Kelly era, where it's like, cool, you go through the schedule, you beat everybody you should beat, and then the second you get to Alabama, or you get to that team that's a cut above, you get to a Georgia, you get to an Alabama, and you just lose that game. You can't beat the top of the SEC, you can't beat Ohio State, like, you can't beat those teams. And not only did they beat Georgia and Penn State, they also took the fight pretty, like, heavily to Ohio State. They didn't lose that game, but it was close there for a while. Losing it by 11 is very acceptable. So this is the thing where it's like, I think in those games against Georgia and Penn State, this Notre Dame team was like, finally, hey, we are an elite team. This isn't, oh, okay, we're below the elite teams. Like, you can't get more elite than Georgia, Kirby Smart in Georgia, and Penn State. Like, those are the elite teams. And you took down both of them in functionally back-to-back weeks. And you took the fight to Ohio State. No, 100% Notre Dame. I feel like those 2 wins there at the end of the season, that was a huge kind of boost for this program. Because, again, that's the thing they've struggled with for forever. It's always been, okay, we beat everybody we should beat, but can we take down Clemson consistently? Can we take down a top SEC team or a top Big Ten team? And they finally did it. So this is where it was a huge boost for them last year. I think for this year, I am a little worried about them just for the quarterback. That's a big question mark here. We all liked Riley Leonard last year. We liked when he came there, and he was okay. He wasn't like amazing. His stats aren't like insane. And he's a backup quarterback for, I think, the Colts now, if I'm not mistaken. And he's been okay-ish in the preseason, not particularly great. But the thing is, that's an argument for Notre Dame, because if they were able to get to the championship game with an okay-ish quarterback, then what would it have been if they had a really good quarterback, like an actually like a second round or third rounder in the NFL draft, right? Like, where they would have won, right? Like, that's the thing. So I do worry about a brand new quarterback, no starting history. He's a freshman, right? That's the thing. So it's concerning, but again, the rest of the team's there. The defense is there. This is a really solidly stacked team. And they, at the end of last season, they realized, hey, we can actually compete with the top and we can beat them. And I think beating Georgia, and I think they beat Georgia, I think pretty decisively. Yeah, 23-10. It was a pretty big beat down there. And then Penn State closer, but Penn State was a better team than Georgia. I think it's, hey, we can actually do this. We are a top-tier elite team. And I think that was a huge step for Marcus Freeman. And I think, yeah, this is his team, and I think people, in many ways, I think they love him a lot better than Brian Kelly, because he's taken them to heights that Brian Kelly never could when he's head coach.
He also likes Notre Dame, and that's something Brian Kelly never really got the sense that he fully embraced Notre Dame. He complained a lot, right? Academics are tough. Kids don't want to come here. Marcus Freeman has disproven that very quickly. Notre Dame is recruiting on another level, which is part of the reason why this program is elevated. But that playoff run, Rob, to your point, that has completely changed Notre Dame football, I think. I think a national championship is possible now. because of that run, because of the perception change, I think, that came with it. So beating those teams you don't usually beat, but also doing so with a largely depleted roster to injury. Notre Dame and Oklahoma were probably the two most banged up teams last year. And Notre Dame walked into a national championship game with both of their interior defensive tackles, who were captains, out of the game. They had lost their edge rushers way earlier in the season. Ben Morrison, who should have been a first-round corner if he doesn't get hurt, hadn't been playing for half the season. It's just what they were able to overcome.
You lost left tackle before the season, right? Before the A&M game.
Exactly, and then we lost two offensive linemen during the season. Coogan, the center, and Spindler, the guard, who both transferred out elsewhere. Well, they transferred out elsewhere because they were backups last season who just happened to be starting in the national championship game. So Notre Dame, I think, has definitely changed how people view them because they've won those games. You also have the whole independent thing going into the playoff. That was talked about a lot. And Notre Dame's ability to not share some of that revenue justifies Notre Dame's non-affiliation with a conference. And I think you just got all these factors right now that are accumulating in something I've never seen before. You speak to Notre Dame fans that are older, it feels more reminiscent to Lou Holtz days about how the mentality is, how the culture is, how the recruiting operation is, because Notre Dame is just firing on all those cylinders. And again, being able to recruit at a higher level, which I don't think Brian Kelly's a bad recruiter. I think when he gets involved in recruiting, he's good. The issue that we've heard post Brian Kelly leaving, and things are able to circulate easier, he wasn't a grinder. He wasn't necessarily out there working the phones as much as you'd expect Marcus Freeman to. There's a very famous story of a really good wide receiver who was willing to come to Notre Dame. He just wanted to talk to the coach. And Brian Kelly didn't want to talk to him because in Brian Kelly's mind, he should be honored to play here. I'm not going to give him a pitch. Jesus. So it was, I think Brian Driscoll of Irish Breakdown recently dropped that story with more names and details. So when you hear things like that as a Notre Dame fan, it makes you want to pull your hair out of your head because we've been told we just can't get the best athletes. They just don't have the grades to qualify. Turns out a lot of them do, and a lot of them want to go to a good school because life after football does mean something to a lot of people and to a lot of families. And you're starting to see a lot of NFL kids and their legacies. They're sending their children to Notre Dame. I don't think that's a coincidence that started to happen because when you are able to compete on the field, develop players, and then be able to provide what that Notre Dame degree is worth, you start to become really attractive, and I think that's going to elevate Notre Dame to the next level.
Yeah, fair point. Just in fairness to Brian Kelly, I don't know if he likes anybody or anything, so you guys just got to stop taking that personal, okay? What's interesting, too, is you said reminiscent of Lou Holtz days. I kind of a certain other Big Ten program, and I find it interesting that the two, I guess we'd say, most beloved recent coaches are Ohio State guys who are really not a favorite in South Bend. Lou Holtz was an assistant there, and obviously Freeman played there. Any conflicting feelings about that?
I don't know who Ohio State is, and I would prefer not to talk about them ever again.
The next slide is a map of the state of Ohio. I'll help you out here. No, okay. I see where you're going with that. Just, okay.
3 years in a row we've lost to them, and at least one of them we should have won. The one at Notre Dame Stadium, we should have won that game. But, yeah, Ohio State is the standard right now, and we lost that game. We were not the better team that day. Ohio State had a more loaded roster. Notre Dame was pretty depleted. I don't think the injuries are the reason we lost. I'm just saying we didn't go into that game fighting on the level field, and we were able to put up a good fight. But Ohio State is that level we're chasing. We're not there yet. It's annoying to say because their fans aren't always particularly nice. So they're very, very aggressive, let's say. However, we're getting along fantastically now because we're both bonding over this weak penalty Michigan received for the cheating scandal. So we're bonding with our Buckeye brothers, but it's going to take a lot of work.
We can make it a triumvirate here because, believe me, there are some strong feelings at USC about that, too. I can just tell you. I don't know if you noticed, there's a little thing that happened to us about, 15 years ago? That still burns our ass. This is not the USC pod, but my gosh, we could have 3 episodes on that. All right, back to Marcus Freeman. I remember when he had his first staff together, I mentioned this to you. I said, I'm not really thrilled about Tommy Rees. This feels like some guy who doesn't know what he's doing, just picking his best bro and saying, hey, you'll be offensive coordinator because we both don't like Brian Kelly. And I said, this is a first-time coach. You need somebody who's been a coach on the staff. And he brings in Al Golden. I remember I told you that doesn't count because Al Golden's a dummy. Al Golden's on to better things now. He was a good DC, but being a DC under Marcus Freeman's kind of like being the defensive coordinator, like when Ray Lewis was on the Ravens. It didn't matter. You're just there for the ride and just don't screw it up. Tommy Rees actually turned out to be really underrated. I know that Nick Saban hired him, but he proved himself to me. Drew Pine was the quarterback for most of that season, right?
Yep.
He had an apex of 102. And Drew Pine, I apologize to the kid, but that guy did not have FBS talent. He just didn't. I don't know how Tom Rees got that out of him. Rees, is he a position coach now in the NFL?
Yeah, I think he is. When Brian Kelly hired him, for reasons, when other coaches were available, let's just say a certain offensive coordinator at Georgia was available, and Notre Dame had opted to go for Tommy Rees instead. That is because Brian Kelly had a pre-relationship with him, and he was really highly touted as a bright young guy. So after 1 year, Kelly leaves, Freeman keeps him on, because Freeman at this point is only a year into it as well, so they were looking to keep continuity and keeping classes together. It's interesting because I'm pretty happy with what we're at right now for offensive coordinators, but I don't think Tommy Rees is by any means a dummy. I think he's a really smart guy. No. I'd love to see him back in the program eventually one day. I think it's probably better for his mental health to get away from Notre Dame, because for any of you who remember Tommy Rees, he was a heavily criticized quarterback at Notre Dame. He was somebody that was pushed into a position because of injuries and incompetencies early in Brian Kelly's tenure, and the fans really crucified him. And then the 2012 season happens, he loses his job to Everett Golson. Yet Golson was a very young quarterback at the time, so Tommy Rees had mop-up duty all year, never really got credit for it. And then Golson gets suspended for the 2013 season over academic issues, so then Tommy Rees has to then be the quarterback for the 2013 season. So I love him. I understand he's been under the microscope beyond belief at Notre Dame, so I'm happy that he got away from it. But one day I would like to see him back, because he's a Notre Dame guy through and through, and everybody says he's a very smart offensive mind.
Literally, you haven't seen Drew Pine come close to that since. That really impressed me. So just showing growth with Freeman. Now you've got, I think the hiring of Denbrock was genius. As a USC guy, I wasn't really thrilled with that. Obviously, he was just a proven guy at LSU. Apparently, like if you coach for Brian Kelly, it's just nothing better than going from that to being under Marcus Freeman.
So just for a matter of record, Notre Dame took LSU and Brian Kelly's offensive coordinator from them. Just as a matter of record. Okay, great.
Okay. And now he's got Chris Ash, who Urban Meyer has said is the best defensive coordinator he ever had a coach for him. I don't know if you've heard that.
I did not hear that. I didn't know Urban Meyer was still around.
Now, he's on TV. Now, to that point, he said it in the context of when Chris Ash was still the Rutgers head coach. He picked Rutgers to pull some upset, and it, of course, did not come close to happening. But you've got just literally, I don't know if he's top shelf, because your top shelf is guys like Knowles, and he's definitely the next cut. Absolutely, I think so. But again, this is kind of, you could have almost anybody at this point. I'm not worried about the defense. You've got Brent Venables, I'm never worried about that defense, or Kirby Smart, I'm never worried about that defense. USC had a horrible offensive season last year, and still by the end of the season, I think I had him in the top 10. Just so Lincoln, you're at that now with his defense here. So just having Chris Ash is just gravy, or you guys might call it poutine. Sorry.
I like it.
So what do you think? And I'll start with you on this one, Robert. What do you think Freeman's ceiling is as a head coach?
Yeah, I can see him winning a national championship. And I'm just trying to think how many coaches I could see winning a national championship. I think we're going to talk about that a little later, but it's not a huge group of them. You could fit them in a room. It's not. There's 120 some odd FBS coaches. It's not, the list isn't 120 some odd long. And I could see him winning one. And I think at a certain point it's just a matter of time now. That's the thing. Like, we're very close to it. It could be this year, could be the next year, but like, they're going to be, like, I think with Notre Dame now, because again, they're not in a conference, but I think from now on it's going to be like, there's X at larges, but in actuality there's only X minus 1 because one of them's going to Notre Dame. I think that's what it's going to be now for all these new, like, expanded postseason conversations that are happening. It's always, one of those going to Notre Dame. And it's because before in the Brian Kelly era or the pre-Brian Kelly era, that was never the case. It was just like, maybe they're good this year, maybe they're not. Maybe they go 8-4, maybe they go 6-6. We don't know. But now it's they're going to be 10. Like, the question is 10-2 or 11-1 or maybe even undefeated. And their schedule is not. They schedule some pretty tough teams here. This is not. I mean, you've got what you've got basically two teams that almost made the conference championship games, one that did win their conference and was in the playoffs, and like the schedule is not easy. There's a lot of really good teams on the schedule, so that's the thing. No, I like the coaching. He's built this up year after year, and it's gotten better since he first took over. And you could tell this is the direction he wants to take the program in, and I really trust the direction he's taking. And I think if you can clean up those dumb losses, but to be fair, every coach has that. Every coach has a bad game here or there, probably once or twice a year. If he can clean that up, and we don't have another repeat of Northern Illinois, then that's the thing. That's fine then.
Yeah. I don't think you're going to argue against Robert's point there. Is that fair, Dylan?
That's true. I'll be honest. I'm looking at that schedule, and I see USC, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but that's going to be a highly emotional game with... And you look at USC's schedule, they should be ranked coming into that one. That should be a really good game.
Yep.
So I see a highly emotional game that could really tilt the season one way or the other, followed by Boston College. And for anyone who's a little older... That is a traumatizing thing to look at as a Notre Dame fan. Boston College following a big game because, of course, 1993 game of the century, Notre Dame beat Florida State and then lose to Boston College the next week, which cost them the national championship. That terrifies me, but that's not rational. And the thing with being a Notre Dame fan is most of what I do is not rational. There's certain people allowed to watch Notre Dame with me until we're losing, and then they have to leave. So I'm not going to pretend to be the most insightful analyst when it comes to my own team. But I do agree with Rob there. I think this team should be in the playoffs. The one thing that concerns me is those first two games, and you're breaking in a new quarterback either way. Yep. That's going to be a concern. I would much rather those games later in the season after our quarterback has had time to learn how to be a quarterback. But we're not going to have that luxury. The good thing is I believe the Notre Dame roster is superior to last year's team in every position except two. That's how really good I think this roster is this year, and you should be able to win those games with just okay quarterback play, because I think you can run the ball on anybody with the offensive line coming back in the shape that it is, and the stable of running backs that are just outrageous. It's not just the 1-2 punch, it's 3, 4, and 5 are also really talented players. So I'm looking forward to this season. I'm really curious to hear your guys' opinion about how the season's going to go, but I'm ready to move.
Yeah, season we'll do in a little bit. Just
okay.
If I take a step back here in terms of Freeman's ceiling as a head coach, obviously he proved a lot in that run post Northern Illinois, and the next slide we'll talk about really who he beat. But one thing that we've kind of stumbled on in a lot of our conference previews is almost kind of, even without trying, a lot of the private schools are stumbling into success in the NIL era. Mm-hmm. And this is as good as it gets in terms of Notre Dame and USC, in terms of we have money and we're going to try.
And it's
really
legal for
like
us
big
now.
Fish. Yes, exactly. Guess what, SEC? Now we're playing by, it's legal now. Interesting too, last two champions have not been from the SEC. Go figure. But I think that I put the total at 1.5 national championships for Marcus Freeman. He's young, he can recruit, and he's unlocked the secret sauce, and the secret sauce is more zesty now in the NIL era. So
I will admit,
go ahead.
I forgot we were talking about his ceiling for a second. Robert got me so excited about the season that I went down that path. I think you're both being very fair. I think Marcus Freeman I could see it go in a lot of ways, right? You could see that glass ceiling being too hard to break and him not winning one, or you could see him staying there for 20 years and winning a couple. I think he's got that potential. I think once you got to think this is a young man himself who just learned how to be a head coach, and he's figured it out. And if he gets better at this and he gets years of his culture and his program and his people, that could be, with his age, something we don't see anymore in college football, which is a long tenured head coach. Gundy might be the last guy that I can remember out in Oklahoma State who's been there for what seems to be 20 years. Nick Saban was like that at Alabama. Before that, it was a little more common, your Joe Paternos and company, but I think with his age and his ability, he could be that. But it's also a really tough sport to win a national championship in, and that's something we've very painstakingly have come to realize.
Yeah, what's interesting though is, I'll just go to the next slide as we bring this up. We did a preview on just who's an excellent coach today, because it seemed like everybody sucked if you talked to the right person. There were no good coaches. I said, we're going to make lists here, okay, people? I wanted to, okay, nobody argues with Kirby Smart. Day has been so good. He finally won a national title. Cignetti, you have to go into what he did at James Madison even before FBS, and then just going undefeated at James Madison. Come on. And if you look at DeBoer's work of total body of work going back to, was it Sioux Falls, something like that? He just has an insane just career one-loss record. Taking Washington in that second year to the title game is nuts. So those are just, I think there's no arguments there. And then here's where it gets interesting, the second column. If we were doing this a year ago, Freeman would not be on this slide. He wouldn't even be a discussion. And now I put these in, I don't remember what order. They're not ranked. But if I'm looking at the ones that have the most likely path to being in the first column, I don't know. It's him and Summerall, and this guy's got a 3-lap lead on Summerall. Summerall started hot. Jesus. Now, he didn't start at Notre Dame, but who knows what he would have done. I think those two just have a leg up on everybody else. Robert, you can go ahead and point out, you're shit-talking Dan Lanning again, so go ahead and come in there now with that.
No, 100%, yeah. Dan Lanning is also very close there. Honestly, I was looking at this list here. Kirby Smart, Ryan Day, Cignetti, DeBoer, Freeman, and, like, the way I think of it is this is, like, if you're sitting there and you're watching a game and they say, oh, it's this coach versus this coach, what are you like, oh, man, I want to see that. And man, I'd love to see Freeman versus Smart again, or Cignetti. I mean, actually, he played two of them, actually. And he took down another one on that same list last year. Ryan Day, same thing. Kalen DeBoer, right? Kalen DeBoer is 2-0 against Dan Lanning. That's probably one of the reasons why Dan Lanning didn't win a national championship in 2023. And then Dan Lanning also lost to Ryan Day last year, another reason why. I know we can't actually put Dan Lanning in the excellent column for that reason, but you really want to. Okay, he's really close there. I think him and Marcus Freeman deserve both.
You who? You're not speaking to me, are you?
People in general want to move him to the... No,
people outside my household, maybe. Yes.
Okay. But no, that's the thing. I think... the interesting discussions ones, there's a big gap, I think, between some of the ones that are a lot closer to the excellent head coach column and some of them that are closer to the mortally flawed column. And I think depending on who you are, your opinions on that will vary. But, like, in my opinion, Dan Lanning is a lot closer to excellent than James Franklin or Billy Napier. That's the thing. So, that's my take on that.
I agree. Yeah. I gotta say, I like Curt Cignetti. I lost a lot of respect for him at the end of last season with a lot of the trash talk that was talked and the way they gave up that playoff game against Notre Dame and then taking teams off their schedule. I understand Cignetti's a good coach, but to me, if Dan Lanning isn't in excellent, I don't know if Curt Cignetti belongs in excellent. I think I put them in that same tier. Kalen DeBoer, big fan of. He took that Washington team to a national championship. I got no issues there. Like you, Robert, I do think like your Freemans and your Lannings, I'm a big fan of Mike Elko. I think they're closer to that excellent tier. I'm curious where Kenny Dillingham is. I don't see him anywhere. What do you guys think of him?
I love him. It's one season.
Okay.
And one season and a gutsy swinging gate for 5 games season that was novelty and goofy and fun to watch. I got to see more than one season from a guy. Having said that, the guy at the top of the second column has just, I don't know. He didn't have a losing record like Dillingham was. It was a different situation. I do want to point out, too, this is what I really like about the expanded playoff. You have a lot of these matchups here between guys, and it sorts themselves out, too. The fact that Freeman actually beat 2 guys that I have here in this column here, and the only loss is to the third guy in here, kind of hard to imagine. Almost by the laws of physics, he has to be in this column right here. You look at James Franklin. Who did they beat? Okay, a guy that's not on the list. Actually, it was 2 guys not on the list, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And on the list.
And who is mortally flawed, right? No, they didn't lose to Texas. Who did he lose to?
Oregon and Notre Dame.
That's right. Which is okay. Then you got Sark, which he beats. There's a team that he's way more talented than, and then he promptly loses after that. So I like how the playoff really helps us sort this out with a lot more top-level connective points. Everybody wants that in the regular season, including me, but you're getting that in the postseason, and that, I think, is just really informative here. All right. We will talk about specifically the offense now. So I had Notre Dame rated offensively 13th in all of FBS last season. The passing game was only 52nd. We talked about it. There's my laser pointer. There it is. We talked about last year that Riley Leonard just was a bit of a disappointment. Was he hurt? Did he not recover from the ankle thing, or did he just not fit?
It turns out he's not a big thrower. That's kind of what we learned last season. That's not his strong point, which is a quarterback you don't love to hear that. I think he's such a weapon with his legs, and that in itself helps the offense. I maintain that the national championship game will be remembered for two things. One, who the winner was, but more importantly, that opening drive where Notre Dame takes 20 plays to score a touchdown, and Riley Leonard runs for 4 first downs and a touchdown. So he was a valuable player in that respect, but passing the ball it just wasn't there. I don't know if it was mechanics. I'm not sure how many reads he would go through, how many progressions. I think it was option 1 and then maybe take off. So I don't think it was an injury. I have a lot of good things to say about Riley Leonard, though. I think he's an excellent captain. He really embraced Notre Dame. I know the fan base and the students loved him. He was so tough. He had gone through so much physically. But passing just wasn't where it was. And that's where there's hope for this season, where if you could think, wow, if we can just get a little bit more in that part of the game, that could change the outcome of everything.
So to that point, it's hard at this time of the season, especially if it's your own team, but to the extent that there's objective buzz about your quarterback that hasn't played yet, what is it on Carr?
Is it Carr?
Oh boy,
That's a good
really?
Point of discussion. Yeah, so one of the quiet/loud headlines, depending on which news outlets you're paying attention to, has been who's going to be Notre Dame's quarterback. The assumption was Carr, because Carr is a legacy from Lloyd Carr, the Michigan head coach who picked Notre Dame over Michigan. And he was highly recruited, and he had a wonderful spring game. But Kenny Minchey is a year older than him, very dynamic, much more of a runner than Carr can be, but is also a pocket passer preferably. Like, that's his preferred game style, is to throw the ball in the pocket. So you have a really legitimate quarterback battle that's been raging on, and the most recent things we're hearing is that it might actually be leaning Minchey. Now, I don't know if that'll be enough to pick him, because you're going to have these other considerations too. The loser's probably going to transfer out at the end of the season. And you might have to make that assessment of, okay, Carr's got the extra year, he's younger, and he probably has the higher ceiling, I would think. So if it's neck and neck, does that factor into your decision of who you name quarterback? Either way, both guys have not started before. And I'm not sure, Kenny may have taken a few snaps last year, but it's not like they've played any game time. So that is going to be a big question. And unfortunately, there's not really going to be an answer to it until we watch the Miami game to see what we have. Because if you get just decent to good quarterback play, or good to great, I think this team could win a national championship. Mm-hmm. If you do not have that, and it's a poor quarterback situation between the two of them, then you may have wasted a national championship roster on a 9-3 season, and that's scary to me.
I've seen that up close and personal, but with the other way, where basically you have the quarterback and you couldn't get it around him. The running game, I had them third in all of FBS behind Army, obviously not conventional, New Mexico, who basically had, what do we want to say, Reggie Bush, who could throw the ball at quarterback. Now he's at Utah. Specifically just Jeremiah Love. His GGAB, that's my basically, how do I say this? Cumulative, not counting stat in terms of additional yardage gained. He alone had a GGAB of 53 per game, which actually tied him with the entire team of Georgia for last year.
Wow.
I sneakily was thinking of him for the Heisman Trophy. Robert, since this is your thing, and what is it, 33 or something to 1? Am I just... That seemed like with the narrative, especially now with CJ Carr, not even a sure thing.
Yeah.
That just seems like the better play than any kind of national championship play. Now, Robert, you go, then Dylan, you can disabuse me because you have 4 guys that are just as good in the running back room behind him. But Robert, you following my train of thought there?
No, that does actually make a lot of sense. So just looking at the schedule, you've got a couple of tough teams. But then after that, there is no reason why it can't just be like Jeremiah Love run for 150 yards a game and 3 touchdowns, right? There is no reason why you can't do that against Purdue, right? That's the thing. That's the thing.
Where
right?
does it stop?
That's the thing. There's so many that it's like you could just... Obviously, you're going to have to throw the ball against Miami and against Texas A&M and USC, but outside of that, just hand it off to him. He can go get 20 yards, right? That's the thing. It's now obviously he can still throw the ball, but obviously he could have insane stats in a lot of those games. That could really help for the Heisman race, especially if you get these, if Ohio State falters somewhere and Texas falters somewhere, and because a lot of these, like Texas, I guess asterisk, Archie Manny's not a freshman, but Ohio State freshman, Alabama freshman, first year starter for that, right? All of them don't have experience, so if they start faltering, then all of a sudden it's going to be like, okay, we can't pick Ohio State because of this, we can't pick Alabama because of this. But if Notre Dame is cruising there at like undefeated or 11-1, and Jeremiah Love is racking up the yards per game and has 25 rushing touchdowns, there's going to be he's Ashton Jainty. We should have given it to Jainty last year. Let's give it to this guy this year. That actually does make a lot of sense.
His name's kind of on the national grid already. I see the disconnect. That number seems off. Now, you go ahead and tell me you've got 4 guys that are just as good behind him, and then I'll back off here.
I'll walk you through my thought process because I think there's good arguments both ways because it is really good value there. So I'll start by saying the Four Horsemen podcast, we very much lean into being propagandists a little bit. Like we're Notre Dame fans. That's the angle we go with. And every year we have a Heisman campaign. So we will be starting the Love for Heisman campaign very early on. But this is how I see it. So to Rob's point that he was talking about how other big programs are doing, Heisman is ultimately a media award. Mm-hmm. It is an award that has popularity contest underlying it. And there isn't a program in this sport that plays better with sports writers than Notre Dame. And if you were to have... Look, Manti Te'o almost won a Heisman as a linebacker. And to be fair, he had a great season that year, 7 interceptions. But just by factor of being on Notre Dame on an undefeated team brought him to the finalist position. He finished second. So if you have, to Robert's point, Notre Dame 11-1, 12-0, and Love has got outstanding numbers, I think that becomes a favorite to win the Heisman, if that's the case. The issue I have with it, and this is what people push back on, is Notre Dame very much likes to split their carries between the backs, because the number 2 running back, at least, is Jadarian Price, who would start at pretty much every other college football team in the country except a handful. He's that good. He's Katron Allen for Penn State. You got Singleton and Allen. It's that same level. So I just don't know if there'll be enough opportunities for Love. Now, he can get involved in the passing game, but they tend to like their third running back, Aeneas Williams, who was a true freshman last year. They tend to like him in that role as that gadget slot back. What I would like to see is maybe kickoffs and returns. That might be one way to get Love a little more opportunity because he's so explosive. You saw it in that Indiana game. The first touchdown of the expanded playoff era is a 98-yard run from Jeremiah Love where he gets the outside and he blows by everybody. He was also suffering with a leg injury that whole playoff run, which is in its own outstanding because, of course, he basically, I don't want to say he wins the game against Penn State, but he took 4 Penn State defenders with him and got over the line for a touchdown with basically one leg. That's how beastly this guy is. So I don't think you would be crazy at 33-1 to take him. My only concern would just be how many touches is he going to get, and is it enough to overcome that inherent bias against running backs when it comes to the Heisman? Because you have to have one hell of a season as a running back. Look, we saw it last year, right? Travis Jancy didn't win the Heisman, which is shocking in its own right with how good of a season he had. But that it's a good bet, but that would be my concern going into it.
So I was just looking up, not the last, but one of the last Heisman winners actually had to split a lot of carries with a guy named Lendale White. Lendale White had 197 carries and Reggie Bush had 200, so only 3 more carries. I think that takes care of itself, and I'd like to see it. I'd like to see how it gets managed if it's a real thing. If in October there's some buzz about him, maybe there's a little gravitational pull towards a few more carries each game. Not to 25 a game, but just making sure that he's going to be in the A block on PTI or whatever they say, as it were. All right, kind of to that point, and this is really where I started to get just amazed with what we're talking about here. So the offensive line, these are the returning talent metrics for those of you who are new. This is returning starts, not starters, returning starts on the offensive line. And this number is artificially low. I capped this at 10 per player. So it used to be so I didn't reward Alabama for playing 14 games every year at the expense of everybody else. And you guys played 16 games, is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
You've got more, because this is a capped out number here. So even though you're ranked, nominally 17th, if I went by raw numbers, you'd be by far in the top 10. And this is what's scary. You had, this defense was 11th? What did I say here? 13th in FBS. The run game was 3rd, behind only Crazy Army and the goofy stuff that they do, and Reggie Bush throwing the ball at New Mexico. Those are the only 2 teams that ran the ball better than you. Notre Dame has the highest improvement metric of every team in FBS. Basically what I do is I say, your first X number of games, you're going up a learning curve. And once you're past that X, it's gravy. So how many games did each player play in that learning curve era? And based on that, the Notre Dame offensive line should be the most improved from a unit that had the 3rd best running game last year. That literally was the moment when I saw that number. I gasped and I said, okay, this is pod worthy. We've talked about the running backs. The offensive line is just insider info. I don't even know. But you gave information that you were actually banged up to a bit last year as well on the offensive line.
Yeah. What's interesting is the center, Ashton Craig, won the job as an underclassman and got hurt in the Texas A&M game, I think. And Coogan comes in and has a great season. Ashton Craig's back, so he's going to be your starting center. And all 5 linemen right now, if I understand this stat correctly, if not, it's at least 4 of them. All 5 starting guys you'll see against Miami are eligible to come back next year as well.
Wow.
They're recruiting at an even higher level than they used to for the offensive line. That is going to be, like, O-line U is going to be a thing again for Notre Dame, as it was for a period of time there in the mid-2010s. It is a shocking stat, but I'm also not surprised by it because I think about the Notre Dame roster a lot. I know what we have going on, and there is a lot of talent coming back. And again, the left tackle that got hurt last year that you referenced, Charles Jagasa, he got hurt again this offseason, but he's only going to miss a couple games. So that guy, he was a 5-star guy. He was supposed to be the starting left tackle. He's probably going to be a guard this year. And you saw him in the national championship game play decently. So, like, they're going to be really good on the offensive line. Yeah. And if you're a believer in offensive line can help dictate running game and running back production, which I am, you might see a lot of it this year because I expect that offensive line to be dominant.
And that's why I just circle back to the Jeremiah Love and the, in my mind, new quarterback, but now it's new and unknown. All right, the weak spot and who knows chicken and egg thing did not have an explosive passing game. The top receiver from last year was 267th in all of FBS in my Ryan metric. That's basically saying cumulative explosiveness over the course of the season. They do add Malachi Fields, who was actually 57th in that metric, at a pretty bad spot in Virginia. I was disappointed. Was it Eric Rivers, the guy that they got from FIU?
Oh,
or Chris Mitchell. Chris Mitchell.
Yeah, Chris Mitchell.
Yeah, that just didn't pan out. And he was really good at FIU. It's just, you're jumping up several spots, and I guess you don't know until it actually happens there. It nominally looks better. If there's one thing that I'm probably concerned about the most, it's the explosiveness in the passing game. Is that a fair critique?
It is, but it's also the position group we're hearing probably the most positivity from in fall camp because, as you pointed out, Malachi Fields is part of this group now, and he was a very productive receiver at Virginia that's going to lock down that boundary wide receiver position. Greathouse, if you watch the playoffs, he was a breakthrough performer. He's the one who scores the winning touchdown against Penn State. He's the one who scored, I think, 2 touchdowns against Ohio State in that comeback. You're going to get a full season of him. We're expecting a lot from Jaden Greathouse, so I think you should see improvement there. Jordan Faison, he's the lacrosse player who also plays football. He was very injured last year, and you start to see him come through in the playoffs more, so I think there's expectations. And they also picked up Will Pauling from Wisconsin, who at one point was a pretty productive slot receiver for them as well. He actually just got...
Speaking of rough situations, Wisconsin, everybody.
Yeah, no doubt. He actually just got named captain today. One of the team captains of Notre Dame is this transfer from Wisconsin. I think the room's going to be better, and that's not including a lot of the talented receivers they've recruited that are bubbling and percolating underneath. So there's going to be some interesting depth there. But they don't have a true number one, so I don't think you're wrong to say that explosivity in the passing game from the wide receiver position is a concern. I think it's there. We just need to see it. And until we see it, jury's out. And I think that's a fair position to have when it comes to Notre Dame's receiver group of the last few years.
Yeah. Robert, this year we stumbled into the standard, and I don't think we're talking about it here, the joke of, hey, in the passing game, just don't be Gavin Wimsatt. and the thing is, you can run your running game can get your receivers open. Is that kind of how it's going to play out, you think, for this team, even though there's not like a USC level kind of number one, but the running game will probably just soften it up for them?
Yeah, super strong O-line, which one directly helps the running game, right? Like 100%, that makes your running game go. And I think even with just that alone will open the passing game. But then again, you also have a very strong O-line. So yeah, you get 5 seconds back there, right? That's more than enough time, right? In the event you can't find a read or something, like it's going to be like slow motion back there. So that's the thing. So it opens up so much time, and the running game is going to open up the passing game a ton, right? And I think it obviously with any of the quarterbacks that they're potentially starting, CJ Carr or Minchie, they're going to need some time to develop, right? They're going to make mistakes. There's going to be development in there, and I think if the fact that you have a good offensive coordinator that had a good offense last year, that you have such a good O-line, I think that's ultimately what's going to make the difference here. You need to have them take time to develop. They're going to make mistakes. But luckily enough, you can just have Jeremiah Smith run the ball for a bit, right? If it's like, hey, you know what? It's 3rd and 5. We don't really like this. We're a bit iffy on this. Just have him run. That's the strength you can have with your team, right? Where you can just be like, just run the ball a lot. So I think it is concerning that quarterback, the fact that you're starting basically a freshman is concerning. But again, at the same point, the fact that you have an O-line and such a strong running game is the best kind of insurance policy for that you could possibly have.
It's the best situation for a new quarterback. I can't imagine a better situation. It's not okay, go out there, DJ Lagway, win these ones for us, right?
You're also going to have a defense that's going to get you the ball a lot.
Yep.
If it's Carr or Minchie, you're in a good spot, which is why we have high expectations. But it's quarterback's the most important position in any sport for good reason. So it's hard to say that you feel really confident when you don't know what you have. But we're also seeing, I feel, and correct me if I'm wrong because you're playing with the analytics, but I feel like we saw a big shift in the last 10 years towards pass-heavy offense. And I feel like we're starting to see a pendulum shift, at least correct itself a little bit. Like I think a lot more running production has gone in the last few years. Am I crazy to observe that?
I think that's regional.
Okay.
The Big 12 is still pass-happy, just kind of anything that's in Texas. They'll just throw it and maybe run once in a while. But I think outside of that, yeah, I think there's been a little bit of a pull towards running more. The other thing, too, is I'm wondering how just a longer schedule plays into that, too. Where if coaches are looking to maybe just drain a little more clock and just run the ball a little more, just to shorten the game a little bit. So if you're going to play 15 games, 16 games.
You also have all those rule changes that speed up the game on top of that, too. So I think clock management is almost becoming a little bit more of a weapon. You've seen Michigan do that to Ohio State plenty of times. And there's certainly a formula there. I remember, if I can go a little off tangent here for a second, I remember the only game I've ever picked Notre Dame to lose, because I'm a total Lou Holtz kind of prediction guy, where we're going to win every game. The only time I picked us to lose was when we were playing Alabama in the 2020 college football semifinal. I knew we were going to get just steamrolled that game because our game plan was basically going to be run it on first, run it on second, hope to God you get a first down on third, and then just try to drain the clock. And back in 2020, that wasn't going to work. And unfortunately, Ian Book had a rough day at the office. So, yeah, I'm familiar with the game plan, but we'll see how they utilize it this year because it's going to be very interesting to see how they score their points.
Yeah. Also, don't know if I'd trade that tag against Nick Saban's Alabama team. Probably not a good idea.
It's not a good idea to play against Nick Saban's Alabama team.
Yeah, true. All right, you alluded to it just a moment ago about how good the defense will be. I have less stats on this, but it still just paints a really good story. So I had this team as the 5th best defense in all of FBS last season. 4th best against the pass. Really good pass defense. 30th against the run. And again, this is just crazy. These are the returning talent metrics for the defense. If you're green, you are statistically significantly above the average by at least one standard deviation. Significantly above average in returning starts. I think they're like 3rd in all of 5th in FBS in the improvement metric. And this one is prime starts, where basically, where I say, okay, this is the best ball they're going to play in college. 23rd in FBS. That's probably low too. But this is scary. It looks like the back seven has more experience than the front four. Is that correct?
Yep, that's
yeah.
true.
I like Chris Ash, but like I've said, it almost doesn't matter as long as it's not somebody like Clay Helton there to screw it up on defense.
Brian Van Gorder. That's
oh my gosh. Yes. Although apparently there's nothing better for your defense than to fire Brian Van Gorder, because it worked for Notre Dame and it worked for Bowling Green.
That's true.
Weirdly.
That's true.
So
crazy what a morale boost will do to a team.
Yes, just the get this guy out of here factor. Robert, I'll ask you this. Will this be the best defense in FBS this season?
I think it's very possible, yeah. The offenses they're playing are probably not, like, they don't have Ohio State, they don't have an Oregon, they don't, like, they do have to play USC, but that's it. It's just the one. And Texas A&M, they did play some good teams, but I expect Miami to take a step back offensively this year. Texas A&M maybe a step forward, but they were far from an offensive juggernaut this year. So I think maybe it's not necessarily that, hey, they played the best offenses and they completely shut them down. It's, hey, they played not bad offenses and they completely shut them down. That's, I can see the path that it's going to be a really good defense. I think you had stuff with this with Notre Dame last year had an amazing defense. Ohio State had a really good defense as well. Georgia's was a bit more iffy, but like the teams that have the good defenses are usually the ones that go a lot further, right? A bad offense, if they just occasionally score points, it's fine as long as they can move the ball and at least make the other team have a bit of a longer field. But the defense can really carry teams at times, especially with a younger, inexperienced quarterback.
Yeah, during peak Pete Carroll, I really appreciate that. The sign of a really good defense is that you fear no team. That kind of is it. Like before that, I'd be like, oh, this offense is going to, and just if you don't fear them, then you're there. Notre Dame is definitely there. Now, I guess in terms of the roster better than we do, Dylan, let me ask you this way. If they're not the best defense, why not? To give you an uncomfortable position.
No, that's a fair question. Keep in mind that I still think the defensive line is going to be really good, but that would be just the area of concern. But then again, I'll break it down. So I was thinking about this before the podcast. I was looking at the roster again. Notre Dame had 2 edge rushers get injured early on the season last year. They had, of course, had an underclassman, Boubacar Traore, who had really just came out of nowhere. He's a super explosive athlete, and he had a season-ending injury. And there's Jordan Botello, who's been in the program for a long time, always had high potential, we've always been waiting for it to click. And of course, when it starts to click for him, season-ending injury. The benefit of that is a lot of other players had to step up. And now on the edge, on both edge positions, weak side and strong side, you're 2 deep at least. So I feel good with at least 4, if not 5, edge rushers, and there's a lot of talented underclassmen behind them. It's not you have a potential defensive player of the year candidate on the defensive line. So I don't think you have a star player necessarily, but I think the edge at least has potential to produce that and is deep. The interior is a little interesting. Again, I think I see 4 guys for 2 positions that I feel comfortable with that have experience. So Donovan Heinisch, which is Kurt Heinish's younger brother, named captain today. You have Jason Onye, Gabriel Rubio, and there's a transfer they picked up from either Louisville or North Carolina State. Red AC teams are all kind of the same to me. His name's Jared Lawson, interior defensive lineman. I like all of that, but the issue with the season is it gets grueling, and none of those guys are star players, I would say. I think Boubacar Traore might prove to be this year, and you also have on the opposite end of the edge, you have Bryce Young, who is Bryant Young's son. Bryant Young is an NFL Hall of Famer, Notre Dame legacy. He was a freshman last year and blocking punts all over the place. He's a monster, and he's going to be really good one day. We'll see if it's this year or not. So I think they have potential to produce those stars, but they don't have one yet. So if there is a reason it's not the best defense, it's because I'm a little concerned about the depth on the interior, and I don't think there's necessarily total star power throughout. But that's more than made up from in the linebacker group and in the secondary. It's an embarrassment of riches. The defensive back group is becoming... Notre Dame never could recruit or develop corners. That was something we could never do ever. And now it's... we have too many good corners. Benjamin Morrison gets hurt last year, and he's replaced by Leonard Moore, who now everybody is saying is a top 5 corner in the country this year as a true sophomore. Jeez. There's just a lot of depth there. So the defense, I feel great. I don't know much about Chris Ash other than he was a defensive coordinator at Ohio State. He was the head coach at Rutgers. I don't have any real expectations for him. I also think it'd be hard to screw this one up, to your point, Buck. I think you got a loaded roster, and it's Marcus Freeman's team. You have to use their language, their positions. You're not reinventing the wheel defensively. So I'm expecting an elite defensive group, and that's going to be the strength of the team this year.
Yeah, the floor is super, super high here. I think I'm going to have them just a little bit behind Texas because, like, statistically, Texas's defense last year is the best that I've seen since I've been doing the numbers. They just, I think, unappreciated so. It didn't seem like they got enough credit, and they were an under wagon for most of the season. They really were. I just didn't see them get enough credit, and maybe that's because Sark is an offensive coach. And to that point, remind me, was Freeman before, and I should know this just in standard pod prep, was he a DB coach or a linebacker coach before he was a defensive coordinator? Do you know?
He was a linebackers coach. That's his baby. Because he was a linebacker at Ohio State as well.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't surprise me if he was a DB coach for a year or two, maybe at Purdue or something. But he was definitely the linebackers coach at Cincinnati, and he was our linebackers coach at Notre Dame.
Interesting that back seven is a strength with that. That's another reason I like what I'm seeing here, going back to the Freeman discussion, is I got scarred up close and personal by Sark's magic, in quotation marks, at USC and his ability to pull the loss out of every possible win scenario. And I just told you how good I think the Texas defense is going to be and was last year. And they were the driving force behind that team. And I have problems when the strength of a team is on the other side of the ball from the head coach. Ideally, you're just dominant on both sides. That's not a problem here. I've not had a problem with the defense from day one here. So it's really encouraging. All right, we're going to do the schedule thing. Now, I don't want to go through all the games.
You don't want to talk about Purdue returning two players against a team they lost to 66-0 last year?
Yeah, I think we can pass on that. These are the lines I just came up with. I think it was on Saturday, and I don't know if this makes sense. Robert, you might get this more than me, so tell me if this makes sense to you. I take the win probabilities by all these lines I came up with. I run the win probability against those, and I get an expected distribution of wins. And if I put that win distribution on both sides as a player, if I play the over and under, I have a projected loss, which means I've got a really good number, right? I've got a good set of spreads here when I equate it to win probabilities. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair, yeah.
If I've got to losses on both sides. Okay. So with that, I'm showing a 13% chance of being undefeated and a 77% chance at 10-plus wins. I don't want to go through every game because obviously this after USC it gets really generous, ACC. Let's say. Yes. Yeah. Just a few games here. You got Miami. Let's just talk about 3 games here. Let's talk about 4. The 4 that are the lowest odds here. This is the one I think that you really need to look out for. I don't know how much you know about Miami. Obviously, their head coach is a dunce, which is always just a free field goal. Their defensive coordinator, he's from Minnesota. Minnesota's defense was sneaky, really good last year. And Mario, this is what makes it feel more frustrating about Mario, is like he hires really good assistants and still finds a way to screw up. But I think this guy's like the next one. I think this is just like Jim Knowles going to Ohio State level in terms of what a difference this guy's going to make. That's the one that would concern me if I'm you guys, especially breaking in a new quarterback. What do you think about Miami? Robert and I have talked about it to death, but are you still getting the speed on them?
We're doing our preview at the end of this week, so I'll know more in a few days, unfortunately. I understand this is a team that really struggled defensively last year and has, I think, gone out of their way to replace a lot of that. I think I'm more scared about playing at Miami than Miami itself. I remember Shane Gillis had a funny joke this year where Miami always forgets they suck for a couple games at the start of the season. And that's what I'm worried about because the last time we played Miami was a house of horrors. It just turned on us really quickly. It was the first time Hard Rock ever had life in it with a Miami game being played because of the opponent. And that's the thing with Miami is it's going to be a great environment because of who's in town, not because Miami's known to be great, passionate fans.
Yeah.
So I am a little worried just in general about it. I expect their offense to take a step back like Rob said, but I also expect their defense to take a step forward. So I'm expecting a lower scoring game. I'm just hoping we score enough earlier on to take the pressure off the quarterback.
Big ask. Robert, you and I have talked to death about Heatherman at Miami, so I don't know how much we need to chop up that one.
One more small thing I will say is that,
Please.
yeah, it's improvement on defense, but not a miracle worker. Right, that's the thing. It's okay, they'll be better, but are they going to be like elite week one? No, and that's the thing. And I think I'm not the biggest fan of Carson Beck. I think clearly Cam Ward is a better quarterback than Carson Beck, so that the offense is going to take a step back too. And I think, so it's going to be an interesting game. That is Sunday night, prime time. I'm really excited for that game. I can't wait to see it. That being said, I've already bet Notre Dame, but yes, still very excited for this game.
What is the line? I have no idea what the line is on that one.
I think I got Notre Dame money line minus 130, which is actually pretty good.
Okay.
I think I got to minus 2.5 now for Notre Dame.
Is it? Okay.
I've been seeing 2.5 to 3.5 for Notre Dame.
Oh, okay.
I see some value there too, since I've got 5. Another one is, obviously, I forgot that you would have an appreciation for just how good Elko is. I forgot he was the DC for you guys.
Yep.
Until he fleed Brian Kelly. Go figure. A&M, I don't know. You probably appreciate this. I probably don't have to convince you. I mean, Elko was so good last year. He was awesome at Duke. We all know the Mike Elko thing here, and it almost seems like maybe the next step in his trajectory would be getting a win like this. Can he do it? I don't know. At least he got his quarterback on the learning curve last year in Marcel Reed. He's another guy where I'm not worried about the defense at all. This is tricky. I think you're very fortunate to get him at home this year is how I look at it.
Definitely. I don't like that game at Kyle Field this year just because of the quarterback situation we're in, plus the second year of Elko. I'm a little worried about this game because from what I'm hearing, a lot of A&M fans are going to make their way out for that one. Notre Dame is a great environment, and if you've been there at a night game, it can be SEC level loud and difficult to play in. The problem is that Notre Dame, for better or for worse, is a destination campus and location to go to. If you're a college football fan, it is on your bucket list to go there and experience all that. And because of that, Notre Dame season ticket holders will make a lot of money off of fans who want to come up to watch the game. And it sounds like that's maybe where this one's headed, is we might see a lot of A&M fans pay outrageous money to get into Notre Dame Stadium, and that can nullify your home field advantage. The good thing Notre Dame has going into this game is that there's a bye week in between. We have our bye week really early here.
Yeah.
So if Miami's a disaster or if there's things to correct, you're going to have a week to work on it, and you're going to go into Texas A&M fresh with a whole extra week of preparation. Because we're at home, and because of that extra week, of course I like us to win, but that's by no means an easy game. That's going to be a really tough one. I really rate Mike Elko, and if their quarterback takes a big step forward, that could be a really problematic game for us.
Yeah. Robert, do you want to tell Dylan, not that he needs instructing, but the big thing that he left out about that whole scenario? Maybe you're not picking up on it. The fact that it's in terms of the Saturday with all the people coming there, it's the fact that they're Aggie fans. That's the part that really stinks.
Yeah,
it's a bunch of weirdos on campus. So we'll just say that.
It would be, yeah. No, when you're saying about that Notre Dame being the destination one, it does actually make a lot of sense. Indiana, not necessarily in the South, but not necessarily far from the South. It's not like you're traveling up to New York or something. So a lot of, especially Texas, Oklahoma, that kind of more western South, it's actually not bad to get up there to Indiana for a little road trip there. And it is Midwest, so even coming from the West Coast, it's not too bad to get there. So it's close to the middle of the country. No, I do like Elko. I think this one last year was close. It's weird. Last year I bet on Notre Dame against Texas A&M, and Notre Dame won the game. Notre Dame was the underdog. They won the game, and I came out from Notre Dame won the game as underdog, and I came out more impressed with Texas A&M from that game, which sounds insane. How can you be impressed with a team that was the favorite that lost? But I was. That was a very impressive loss by them. They made that a very competitive game for a long stretch of it, and that they had a really good season after that. And that's the thing, right? I think this is elite. I think this game. Actually, do we know when this game is going to be? Obviously, we know the date, but is it a morning game? Is it a night game?
Yeah, it's one of 3 NBC primetime games for Notre Dame this year, and that's relevant because Notre Dame only gets 2, and for some reason they were given a third one this year. And The third game of all teams is Navy. And I'm of the opinion that is a message that is being sent to the Big Ten because, Buck, I don't know if you've been following this at all, but certain Midwestern powerhouses refuse to play night games in November. And NBC's inventory as part of the media rights deal is severely lacking as a result of it. And the fact that they're giving Notre Dame like a early November, late October Navy game as primetime, a game nobody cares about, that's shocking. So that's a little unrelated there, Rob, to your question, but I do know it's a night game, as is the USC game. They've announced the 3 night games.
Yeah, that's I'm sure NBC was very sad having to steal the game from ESPN and put it on primetime. I'm sure that's very sad for them. But that's gonna be an insane game. I'm looking forward to that. That's gonna be an amazing watch. But no, that could be like, those two teams could be playoff teams. Yeah, that could be really good. I'm very intrigued to see what happens in that game.
We did actually talk about that on your pod last year. We were laughing about like the stupid Penn State Michigan State game at the Ford whatever it is. I don't know. NFL stadiums are not my thing. All right, I don't want to go through the rest of them, but I'm just curious, if from like a worry perspective, I've got a distinct top 4 here in terms of Miami, Texas, Arkansas, and USC. In terms of the games that worry you the most, does that order get them correctly?
100%. I think Arkansas is the trap game of all trap games this year. That they're a good team. People don't understand that Arkansas is a good football team, and thank God it's a noon kickoff because I don't want to play in that environment at night. So it will be hot, but at least the crowd will be tame a little bit. I'm worried by that one for sure because it's a road game in a hostile environment, and they're going to get up for it. We're a better team. We should win it. You have us as a 10-point favorite on your line, and I think that's fair, but I also don't want to overlook them. I'm not worried about Boise. I'll come back to USC because I do want to talk about you guys for a second. But the one game I think, and I don't know if people agree with me or not, I think at Pittsburgh is a potential trap game because it's going to be freezing, and Pitt always historically plays Notre Dame tough. And I just have a bad... I look at that on the schedule and I don't like it. That's the one random game that I don't feel good about.
I will say this. My first impression is like, no effing way. But it's no, because Narduzzi is so dumb. It's like one of those dumb, tough games that he comes up with. And of course he'll lose. But he could I could actually see him somehow keeping it within one score and then just doing something really dumb. I don't know, Robert, if you've noticed this, that Narduzzi does things like that from time to time.
I may have noticed that from time to time, yeah. There's something like Narduzzi will like randomly lose this game by like a field goal, and we'll be like, in like the post game, the expectation for Pittsburgh will be like 86%, and it'll be like, how did that even happen?
Yeah, I don't like Narduzzi one bit, and he doesn't like us one bit. But can we talk a little bit about USC here? Because as a Notre Dame fan, I shouldn't have anything nice to say about you, but here I am defending USC 2 years in a row. Last year, I was sick and tired of the narrative around USC's record. USC led in every game except, I think, the Notre Dame game in the fourth quarter, and all their losses came from them winning in the fourth quarter. You should have beat Michigan. That was a tragedy of a game. As somebody who hates Michigan more, I couldn't believe that you did that to us. You should have beat Penn State at home. That game went to overtime. That was a choke late. Those are two really good teams. You lost to Minnesota.
And
you did beat LSU, though. Who was the last one?
And I bring that up because literally all four of those games, those four were literally one play. Yep. Literally one play. You're talking like a 2-point conversion, a fourth and goal, another fourth and goal. There was a 4th and 3 in overtime. Literally one play. But nobody wants to hear the USA guy say that, so I appreciate you mentioning that.
No, of course. You gave us a much tougher game than Indiana did. That was a disgrace of a game when Indiana came to town. We struggled with you guys at the Coliseum. I was really impressed with the way USC had played that day. Now, I come into this season, and I don't understand it. I'm seeing Illinois ranked in the top 15, which I think Illinois is a good team, but I think everybody's talked about them being a dark horse to the point where we've collectively just decided they're a top 15 team, and I don't know what people are smoking. Michigan is in the top 15 of both polls, and USC's unranked. And I highlight those two teams in particular because those are your two teams you're playing before you come to South Bend.
Yeah.
I would pick you to win both of those games. I think you're at least on the same level as those two teams. Illinois on the road is going to be a tough environment because that's going to be their biggest game of a decade, because with all the hype and with you guys coming in. But Michigan at home, I'd like you guys in, and I don't get why you're not ranked. Now, with that being said, Buck, I do think we're going to blow you out this game. And the reason I say that is that atmosphere is going to be so hostile because of all of the talk about the rivalry maybe ending. I think it's going to be the craziest I've seen Notre Dame USC. And you guys, I respect you. The Coliseum's tough to play in, but Notre Dame, you can't win in South Bend. It's been over a decade since you've been there, and there's been very rarely competitive games. You had a Heisman winner come in and throw 3 interceptions and lose by 35 points or whatever it was. I really rate USC this year. I think we're going to win that game because of just the circumstances. But I just wanted it on record that I think you're being heavily slept on, and I think you're a dark horse for the playoff.
I appreciate that. Actually, when we did our Big Ten preview, Robert was more bearish or more bullish on USC's playoff chances than I think we don't have a chance. I think you hit on it exactly. I like Maeva. He's a better fit for what Riley does. He's not even close to what the best quarterback. But what I learned last year is like when you have a quarterback that cannot run, it makes Lincoln Riley's offense a lot easier to defend. And this guy's not Kyler Murray, but he's not Miller Moss either. And he has enough wheels to really screw with defenses' heads. I don't think that he's good enough to win in that spot. Now, maybe if we bring a bunch of weird Aggie fans with us too, maybe we can have some weird alchemy in terms of the situation. But yeah, I agree. How I come up with these lines is I do an average about if I was to bet each side, what would I want? And I can't remember exactly here, but I think it was roughly like if I'm Notre Dame, I'd take Notre Dame up to giving 5.5. And now if I was going to bet USC, I would want at least 14.5. I average those, and that's how I get to 10. So I'm thinking that if I need 2 touchdowns plus a hook, I'm not exactly bullish on our chances there. Once we start, who knows? If we do beat those other teams, maybe we have some momentum too. We were talking yesterday in the SEC preview about momentum because it's own thing in this sport somehow. Going back to the beginning, you guys you got a couple of easy W's after that Northern Illinois thing, and look what happened after that.
Yep.
All right, so we usually wind up with picking an upset in the conference, and this is not a conference, and that would just be a weird exercise here and dumb. So I put these lines together because each of us are going to pick one play on Notre Dame at the lines here, and then one against Notre Dame on the lines here. So, Robert, you go ahead and pick one where you're taking Notre Dame giving the points here.
I'm trying to think. Some of these are like comical. There's no way the sportsbooks are laying Notre Dame minus 34 at Stanford. Like, that's not.
You don't think so?
It could be higher.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But, like, the books will not hang Notre Dame minus 25.5 against Boise. There's no way. Like,
that's my number.
They should be, though. You're right, they should be, but there's no way the books will ever make that line because everybody would just bet Boise and then they'd lose. But that's the thing.
If Boise, what's their second game? South Florida we were talking about a couple days ago?
First game is South Florida, yeah.
If they lose that one, and Notre Dame is like on a roll here, it might be there. But yeah, point taken.
It's a bit high, but yeah, I think even in that case, I think that'd be 21. But again, that's just public money coming in and not making the line what it should be. I probably would still bet if it was 21, but not 25. I think I will take...
Maybe I'm trying to get you to play on Boise. This worked when we did that bowl thing a couple of years ago.
It did,
I got you guys on that.
What are we doing? Okay, how about... I'll take... I think I'm gonna take at Arkansas. I think I'll take the minus 10 there. I think that's because the thing is the other spreads are just so massive that if Notre Dame just says whatever, right? They'll just like it's hard to say, oh, okay, they're gonna cover a 30-point spread. So I think I'll take the Arkansas one.
Okay, Dylan.
I'm sorry, Buck. I'm gonna take USC. Not because I think we're that much better than you. It's just that it's the environment is going to be so crazy. I think we'll cover 10. I think, and I don't say that as a rival fan dumping on USC. I just knowing what I know and people have talked to this offseason, like Notre Dame's fans are pretty friendly usually when you come to games. I'd be worried about showing up to that one. I think they might burn a replica Trojan live at the 50-yard line before the game starts. Like, they are... The fans are really upset because we're a fan base that loves their history, and I think there's a lot of personally insulted people this summer.
Okay, so 2 responses. Number 1, thank God it's a replica Trojan, not a living Trojan. That would be an awful pregame. Number 2, I haven't heard you guys this confident going into a game since the Jimmy Clausen game in 2007.
I don't know what happened that year.
Okay, yeah, boy, it must have happened in Ohio State, right? It happened in Columbus. I'm going to go, if I'm going, you know what? I'm going to give the 25.5 against Boise. How about that?
Okay.
I can see that.
Here, I was close for me, but I just think it's too many. I think it's like 20. A 21 point is more than acceptable to be Boise, but I think it doesn't have to be 4 scores.
Get ready to bet it. All right. Fading Notre Dame. I'll let you get this one out of the way first. You take your medicine here, Dylan. You're going against Notre Dame on one of these lines here.
I'm gonna take Pittsburgh. I think 26 is just 20. I told you it was the one game, random game I'm afraid of. I'm a little worried just going there that they're gonna muck it up and it's gonna be a triple overtime game like it has been in the past. A long shot shout out for me might be Syracuse at 30.5 because Syracuse is a solid team this year. They just have a brutal schedule, and that's going to be an interesting game, but it's at Notre Dame. So my official pick is Pitt, but don't sleep on the Orange this year is my general take.
I'm officially sleeping on the Orange. I think they're in for a rough season. I'll put it that way. I like Fran Brown. You and I talked about the whole we love David Shaw and like we had a kid. I want to play for David Shaw. Fran Brown he has that seat now, clearly, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's not even debating. Okay, I'm gonna. I don't know what happens to me. This really hurts my DNA. At a molecular level, it hurts me. I'm going with the Aggies +8. Now I have to do the stupid little cheerleading things, whatever they do. All right, Robert, who are you taking plus the points here?
Yeah, I wanted Texas A&M plus the points too, but
You can do it.
Okay, I'll give that one the shout out, but for different sake, I will actually take USC plus 10.5 or 10.
Wow.
Sorry, because the line
10.
the line is actually plus 10.5. It's worth. You nailed that one.
Wow.
Okay. I'm looking through some of the look ahead lines. Actually, I will, and again to cap off the Boise thing, the line is currently Notre Dame minus 16.5 against Boise, so it's already getting there. If they were actually to lose to USF, yeah, it's hitting the 20s, yeah. So that might actually be that 16.5 is actually a betting opportunity. It's actually not a bad thing.
Yes, it is. It is. All right. How far does Notre Dame go this season? I'll go first. I have to factor in, and look, every team has questions. I have to factor in the question marks at quarterback. I'm going to say I'm going to go cowardly here. They make the championship game. Not going to say they win or lose. I will just go vaguely say they make the championship game. Robert.
I think they're a good team. I don't know if they can win it all this year, but they're definitely going to go deep. I'm going to say semifinal. And that's because the thing is, at the top, when you get to the top, you're going to have Oregon. You're going to have some of these like absolute top schools with probably relatively seasoned quarterbacks. I worry a little bit in that case, and I think at that point maybe some inexperience will show. So I'm gonna say semifinal.
Okay.
I think you're both very. I didn't expect that from non-Notre Dame fans.
That's why I did this. Like literally, I can't argue with the numbers, and this is newsworthy and noteworthy to me enough to warrant a pod. So, as usual, the guest will wrap it up here in the predictions. So, what about you, Dylan?
Wow, you might as well be asking Lou Holtz. We're going to win the national championship, of course. It's so dependent on the quarterback. My official prediction will be that just because I have faith in my team, and to be a Notre Dame fan, you have to be a little bit in a cult. So I'm happy with that. But like you said, it's going to be how far the quarterback, I think, takes them. Not in the sense that the quarterback needs to be a Heisman-level quarterback. He just needs to be good. Just be good. Mm-hmm. And if you're great, oh my God, we're talking about potentially winning a real national championship here and ending a big, long drought. So I'm going to be optimistic and say between the two, Carr and Minchie, one of them can do that. But I'm not Ohio State last year, who basically called their shot with a $20 million transfer portal budget and saying, oh yeah, Michigan, you cheated to win one. We're going to win one now. Like they had that expectation that whole year. I'm not holding us to that. I would be very happy with the semifinal performance. I think getting to the semifinal is a reasonable benchmark for us, but I will officially take the national championship.
Okay. Very fair. Just from a gambling perspective, Robert, we've talked about lots of these already. I'm not really excited to lay 170 to make the playoff. I just don't want to sit on my money that long, even though I think that's pretty much a fair shot. I can't imagine, if things unfold the way that I expect unfold, that they will be anywhere close to 12-1 once the playoff seedings are out. There might just be a hedge opportunity for that. I would imagine they'd be closer to 5 or 6, at the most 8. Does that kind of seem like the play here?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think honestly, for some of these teams, if you think like a Texas A&M can make the playoff or something, there is good value on to win the playoff, right? Like Michigan, I think I got Michigan way early in the season at 40-1, and it's just like that number I don't even exist anymore. But if they make the playoff, there's no chance like they're not going to be that number anymore. And I think if Notre Dame is a 11-1, 10-2 team, they're in the playoff. And I think that then you're looking at them being 6-1, right? They're going to be playing probably a relatively lower ranked team in the first round, and if they get through that, then they're in the quarters, semis, and then. So I think 12-1 is a pretty fair bet on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Alrighty. Thank you all. Before we go, Dylan, thank you for joining us. And I didn't explain how Dylan was kind of responsible for this pod. So during the 2021 season, I made my podcast premiere on his Four Horsemen pod. And after that regular season, he invited me and Robert, who had not yet met each other, just to do a bowl predictions pod. And that went swimmingly well. And then the rest of it's all been just, lollipops and what do they say, rainbows. So,
yeah.
Dylan, go ahead and just plug your pod and anything else you'd like to.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's great to see you guys again. You can find us at Horseman Pod. That's our handle on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, and anywhere you get your podcasts. Four Horsemen Podcasts, Notre Dame football. We're looking forward to a big season here. We got mini famous on college football Twitter with some certain posts lately. We're building a nice community there. So if anyone would like to join, it's open to all fan bases. And surprisingly, some of our best relations is actually with USC fans. A lot of really great USC people. A lot of great people from all fan bases, to be honest, even the ones that I hate. There's always a few good apples. You're more than welcome to join us. But yeah, thank you again, and I'm looking forward to this season. It's going to be... Am I crazy to say that parity has gotten a lot better in college football? Because I think there's 8 to 10 teams that could win the title this year. And
literally.
Yeah,
that's why I said semifinal for you, because there's just enough about, okay, everybody's got a little bit of a question mark here or there. Yep, 2 handfuls. Yeah. So.
Love it.
Alrighty. Thank you so much, Dylan. This was awesome. Robert, we've pretty much made it through all of our previews. We have Island Time that will be shortly, but this is the last preview. We made it, buddy, in just over 2 months since I opened the Phil Steele. So we can exhale now. Everybody, we will see you on Island Time. Until then, thank you so much.